Zoo. The Clippers, man in the middle, Ivica Zubac, is an all defensive player. Going to be talking about that, the year of Zoo, and what his grade is for the season on today's Locked On. We've got an all defensive player, Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You were locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, been a Clipper fan for 20 years, been covering the team for 5 years on my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, and 3 years right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, hit the notification bell, and listen wherever you get your podcast. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Head on over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. And let me tell you something else. Ivica Zubac, ladies and gentlemen, is an all-defensive player. Congratulations, Big Zoo. We're going to be talking about his second team all-defensive appearance, the season that he had, the grade I give him for the season, and his post-season as well. And, of course, what's next for Big Zoo. And, I tend to say that James Harden was our MVP this past season. But a lot of people like to say that Ivica Zubac was our MVP this past season, was our best player because of what he had to do on both ends of the floor. You're talking about a guy we really had no backup for. Although with James Harden, we didn't really have a backup for him either. But we did have, that first half of the season, Kevin Porter Jr. was his backup, and he offered some offensive punch. Whereas with Zoo, we really didn't have a replacement for him all season long, and that ended up kind of being costly a little bit in the playoffs for sure. I just don't think I think the front office had to have tried, and the best they came up with was Drew Eubanks. But Ivica Zubac is an all defensive player. We had the 4th highest defensive rating in the league this past season. And you can make an argument based on how you value defense. Then Ivica Zubac wasn't even our best defender this season. That would be Chris Dunn if you value on-ball defense. I'm big into on-ball defense because I'm a guard. I played when I play basketball, I'm a guard. So rim protection, that's not my area of expertise. But, in the original days of basketball, you go back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s, rim protection, and you can some argue now is the most important part of defense. For me, I think you got to stay in front of the ball. But back in the day, like pre-3-point line, absolutely, rim protection's everything because teams are just trying to get to the paint because you're not getting an extra point for anything else. So I think definitely, you got to think about what era it is. But I'm not trying to take away from Zoo. I'm just saying we'll have probably a whole separate episode on Chris Dunn and him not making a defensive team. But if Ivica Zubac makes second team all defense, for me, of course it's well deserved. The thing about it is, should he have been first team? What about these other guys that didn't make it, like Jalen Wells or Caruso or Chris Dunn? Look, I know this is a 65-game limit. And then beyond the 65-game limit, like you have to play 65 games 20 plus minutes or something like that. That's part of why Chris Dunn got disqualified because he ended up playing over 65 games in the regular season. He played 74 games, but he averaged 24 minutes, but it was like the amount of games that he played less than 20. It was just ridiculous. That's part of what disqualified him. But Ivica Zubac, in terms of like his averages, career highs in points, 17 points a game, 16.8 to be exact, 12.6 rebound, also a career high. So he averaged 17 and 13, and then 3 assists a game, which was also a career high, 2.7. He led the league in total rebounds, not average, but he led the league in total rebounds, which again, that's a pretty damn good stat. When you look at the rebound leaders in the regular season, he was 4th in the league behind Domantas Sabonis, Cat, Jokic. That's it. And he plays several less minutes than them. So 4th best rebounder in the league. And you have to remember, rebounds are what end defensive possessions. Zoo has the ability to protect the rim and get a rebound after he contests a shot. You know what I'm saying? He can contest a shot and get the rebound on the second jump. That's how good of a defender he is. And the thing about Zoo is he's always been a solid defender. I think when we first got him in the middle of 2018-19, thank you, greatest point guard of all time, Magic Johnson, gave us Ivica Zubac on a silver platter, we saw immediately, oh, we actually have a guy that can block shots. Marcin Gortat wasn't doing that. And that was one thing that stuck out to me is that, oh man, Zoo's kind of lighter on his feet. Gortat was old. He's blocking shots. He's an actual rim protector, good interior defender, and he's strong. You know, when you look at the way, and this probably had nothing to do with the voting because the defensive teams are regular season awards. When you look at the way he guarded Jokic in single coverage at times in this first round, and even if you go back to the 2020 bubble, what was the big thing? Montrez constantly in against Jokic. Thank you, Glenn Rivers. Not. And so when Zoo was on him, he was doing a pretty good job. And the only thing that, made Zoo over the years struggle was teams that had drop coverage killers and potentially had 5 out kind of units. Because Zoo is a rim protector. He is a drop coverage heavy big. You know, when you look at Zoo's defensive evolution, I think 2019, yes, he showed us he was better than Marcin Gortat, right? But Montrezl Harrell was kind of the guy we closed games with because of his scoring ability. So then the next year we ran into that problem where, oh, we kind of were married to Montrez. We should have leaned into Zoo because he's a very solid defender and was part of why we were a very solid defense that year in 2020. And then in 2021, I think he kept taking steps up, but he at times ran into some trouble, partially because Ty Lue likes small ball. But in the 2021 playoffs, Luka was going at him. And for whatever reason, the first 2 games, we were letting Zoo switch onto Luka, and he was getting absolutely fried. You look back at those attempts, though, a lot of them are contested threes, but they're the contested threes that Luka likes that are in rhythm with space. So that was when, and then in the conference finals, Booker and CP3, not really as much CP3, but Booker was hurting us. And there were moments against Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz where he was hurting us. So Zoo was at times not the matchup. I don't want to use the words getting played off the floor, but there was a thing out there, and I had to, defend it in the comments and stuff like that in 2021, sometimes even 2022. And then in 2023, when we played against the Suns again, can Zoo stay on the court against teams with drop coverage killers? Is he too drop heavy? And you know what I think really made the difference? Not last season, but this season especially, we saw it. And I've been defending him for a while. We just needed great point of attack defense. We didn't really have that. We had Nico. Kawhi's not guarding point of attack frequently. Teams aren't going to go at him, and he's not going to be guarding the primary guy, given that he's our best offensive player. And we had Paul George, it was the same thing for him. So that whole 2-1-3 is going to clamp everybody was kind of fugazi. It would put a lot of pressure on Pat Bev and certain other guys to go out there and guard. So last year, I think our offense was just so explosive, but Paul George got to be, and Kawhi, because of the addition of Harden, got to be a little bit, better defensively. But this year, we really surrounded Zoo with real point of attack defenders that are going to make it hard to just get a screen and get into the lane wide open, because a lot of people just don't know what they're watching when it comes to what Zoo has to do. Because with the spacing of today's NBA and with the lack of contact that you're allowed on ball relative to the past and the illegal screens they're constantly letting guys get away with, I mean, and they don't let bigs like fully hedge hard with contact on screens anymore. So when teams are playing drop, a lot of times these guards are turning the corner and they're walking right into the lane. And people are like, Zoo's fault because they'll lob it up to his man. It's like, dude, what's he supposed to do? Just stand there as guards just go wide open for layups? He has to help, and then someone has to help him. So that's what modern rotations are and against drop coverage. The thing is, now we have defenders that are not allowing guys to just turn the corner into wide open space, and Zoo can now split that difference a lot easier, showing us for a second and making that angle for a lob pass or a shot difficult where he can get blocks. And this season, he averaged 1 block a game, but we were a top 3 defense in the league this season because of guys like Zoo. Overall, I think he had the best impact defensively just because of we didn't have any replacement for him. But the fact that I can argue that Chris Dunn was as good or better, and then you have Derrick Jones Jr. was incredible, that's why we were such a good defense. But Ivica Zubac thoroughly deserves this all-defensive honor. When you wonder, hey, who else made it? Well, here's the thing. I'm going to tell you, but my opinion about all defense, it's tough to gauge because I truly don't believe that there are good stats. I mean, there's some good stats out there, but you need the eye test. You need the eye test, in my opinion, to evaluate defense. No one metric, I think, whether it's defensive win shares or your opposing field goal percentage when you're guarding him, any of those things accurately measure what kind of great defender you are. You got to watch the tape. You don't know the scheme. You don't know what's going on. There's so many things that you cannot account for, lineup data, all that. But the first team all defense was Evan Mobley, who obviously won Defensive Player of the Year, former USC Trojan, of course, Dyson Daniels, Lou Dort, boo, Draymond Green, and Amen Thompson. So Amen Thompson definitely deserves it, no doubt. I didn't watch that many Rockets games, but from everything I saw and heard, there's absolutely no way that he shouldn't be an all defensive player. And they were the fifth best defense in the NBA this season. So I have no problem with Amen Thompson. Obviously, no problems with Evan Mobley. Dyson Daniels, I've heard a lot about him. I just know that he gets a lot of steals, though. Atlanta Hawks aren't a great defense. But again, I didn't watch enough Hawks games, so like I can't really say with confidence. Then Lou Dort deserves. I'm not going to push back on that. Their defense was historically great if you talk about relative defensive rating. So Lou Dort deserves it. And then the second team is Tumani Kamara of the Blazers, Rudy Gobert. So he's not been on the second team for a minute, I don't think. Jaren Jackson Jr., who won Defensive Player of the Year 2 years ago. And then you have J Dub from the Thunder and Zoo. Uh, Zoo ended up finishing in sixth place, I believe. It said for Defensive Player of the Year, which we'll absolutely take. So sixth in Defensive Player of the Year voting and second in Most Improved Player voting. So what a year for Ivica Zubac. In terms of guys that were snubbed, well, of course, there's so many layers to that conversation in terms of the games played and all that. But we know that Zubac earned it. Congrats, Zoo. A milestone in his career indeed to be an all defensive player. But coming up, going to talk about his season and what we graded. I got to tell you a little something about FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't miss moments. Whether it's a game winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Well, right now with FanDuel, we've got some big series right now. Of course, we're in the conference finals. And I mean, to win the championship right now, the Thunder are minus 310. Then the Pacers are plus 600. So if you still believe in the Timberwolves, they're plus 2,000, down 2-0 in that series. But that's where you got to go is FanDuel to bet on everything. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to fanduel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. So Ivica Zubac, I already shouted out his 17, 13, and 3 numbers. The guy was an absolute monster this past season. I'm really happy for him because, he's at this point the longest tenured Clipper. He's the only guy left over from that 2018-19 team that was so endearing to the fan base and played hard every single night. And that's a team that I felt a great connection with, even though I was in college. I made sure it was funny because like I'm standing around with all these Celtics fans all the time. And when they come to my room, because I had like the sick room in our house that year with a friend, everybody would come to my room. So Clippers were on, you hanging out in my room, Clippers going to be on at night. And it was funny because like these people were like, this is the most random year to watch the Clipper games. For a Celtics fan, for example, it's like they got Tobias Harris, Montrez, Zoo, Shamit, all these guys. But I mean, they were a team that everybody was easy to fall in love with. And so Zubac is the last remaining guy from that team. So for me, he's my favorite player on the team. I'm, big into that kind of stuff. He's the closest that we feel like we've gotten to a homegrown. And the fact that we were given to him by our, noisy neighbors over there makes it that much more satisfying. And for me personally, I love post-up bigs because I felt like I grew up in an era where I saw everything but that. I saw everything, well, I'm sorry, post-up centers. I saw some great post-up power forwards. But I was, my first year, I always say Clipper fan for 20 years. My first year really getting into hoops like that. So when I remembered stuff is 0506. The best center in the league was Shaquille O'Neal. He was an older version of himself on the Miami Heat. And then it slowly became Dwight Howard, but his post game was never refined like that. And then we had DeAndre, who's like had no touch around the basket. Having Zoo that, he had a jump hook with his right hand. He had kind of that touch around the basket. And then to say he had that touch around the basket to what he is now, I mean, his floater inside the paint is absolutely money. I mean, it's to the point where I would just shake my head. I'm like, dude, this guy is so good. He gets friendly bounces all the time because of the touch that he puts on these floaters. And the thing that really changed the game for him for me last year was that left-handed jump hook. He never really could turn over his right shoulder. It was always everything going over the left shoulder into that right hand jump hook. He almost always works from the left block too, exclusively. But for years, we just didn't go to him enough, right? But the good teams and the smart defenders knew he couldn't really turn over that other shoulder. As of 2023-24, he was proving that he could turn over both shoulders. And I always say, if you have guys that can turn over both shoulders, you can be unstoppable in the post in terms of getting your shot off. Uh, in Zoo's case, he doesn't really have a turnaround jumper, at least not that we see. So it's all low post jump hooks, which is fine. He just needs to make sure that he gets low post position. And this season, I mean, I would give him an A plus, honestly, on the season. I gave James Harden an A minus. I gave Kawhi a B plus, all things considered. But I'm honestly going to give Zoo an A. A plus maybe a little too much. Now let's go with an A. We're going with an A. He was amazing. He's improved every year, and we would not have gone where we were without him. His defensive presence, we had no backup for him. He rebounded. There's one thing about, I mentioned James Harden and how much he's helped Zoo, but James Harden still, having a good screener always helps. And there were times we went out of when Zoo went out of the game this season, we just had no advantage on pick and rolls because teams would just switch everything. We had no one that could punish mismatches if teams did switch. And when you have a good screener and you feel like you're hitting a brick wall, you're coming off into space. And Zubac is a great screener, and he has such good touch. While he's not a guy like Capella where Harden can just throw it over the rim and he catches it, or CP3 where he can just throw it up to the rafters and DeAndre could go get it or Blake could go get it. Zoo just needs to come down with it. If he's inside the paint, he's getting to some jump hook of some sort, and he's putting it in. I mean, this guy was so money this season. 63% shooting. You better believe that that's the highest on our team. 63% from the field. The only thing I will say is the 66% from the free throw line. That was actually something that went down from last season where he was 72%. But for me, Big Zoo, what a season. When you look at what he did in the regular season, played 80 games too. The guy is consistently durable. 80 games, anchoring what he did. And I always said, as long as this guy gets 30 minutes a game, he's going to average a double-double. He had never averaged a double-double to this point. The closest he ever got was in 2022-23, where he averaged 11 points and 9.9 rebounds. So he was basically averaging a double-double, but again, it's still technically not double digits in both categories. This year, he finally got over 30 minutes, 32.8 to be exact, and he averaged 17 and 13. Like, a lot of it was opportunity. That's another thing, is the coaching staff, and still not enough for my liking, did not trust him enough with the ball in the post. It took us begging as fans and to throw it to him in the post, and it's like, the counter argument that some people had was, well, he's going to get double teamed sometimes. He's not going to pass out of it well. Well, how is he going to get better at it then? You know what I'm saying? You got to give him the reps, and you could see whether it be the low post passing out of it or passing out of the short roll when teams would blitz Harden. He got so much more comfortable with both aspects, with both facets. So you saw his maturation as a passer, and you can see there's a lot more to come with that. So when you look at the way he played in the season, I mean, I thought he was fantastic. And when I do my grades, I'm combining playoffs and regular season. So coming up, going to be talking about his playoff performance and what the next steps for Zoo can be. All right, talking about the big fella, Ivica Zubac, the first white jersey I've ever purchased for the Clippers in my life. Shout out to Ivica Zubac. Also, the first time I've ever bought a player on the Clippers jersey that was white as well. That was random. It has to be. It has to be though. Yeah, because Elton Brand, Chris Paul, Baron Davis, yeah, Kawhi, Terrence Mann. Yeah, no white guys there. No Chris Kaman jersey, and definitely no JJ Redick jersey. You better believe. I don't get no spot up shooters jerseys. Sorry, Luke Kennard. Love you, dude. Anyway, Big Zoo. Now the playoffs. I thought Zoo was pretty good, man. I mean, could he have been a little bit better? Yes. But you look at game one, the way he came out, 21 and 13. Again, I think he and Harden were good in that game. I think Norman Powell wasn't good enough. I think Kawhi Leonard wasn't good enough. Could have gotten a little more from Derrick Jones. Bogey 0 for 3. I mean, yeah, didn't get much there. I mean, only 13 points off the bench compared to Westbrook, who had 15 points off the bench by himself. I mean, a large reason the Nuggets won was that role players were better than ours. But they only played 6 guys. You know what I mean? It's that their role players are so good. Like that core group, Aaron Gordon, the fit around one another, and then you just added in Westbrook, who just balled. Christian Brown was also just fantastic, honestly. You got to hand it to the guy. The role players played better than ours, for sure. But in that first game, I thought Zoo brought it. I mean, he did a pretty good job on Joker, all things considered. Held him to, when you hold Joker to 50%, that's a good thing. Because he gets deep post position, and you have to have a guy that can kind of, bang with him. The second game was the Kawhi game. A little bit of a quieter game for Zoo, but he had 40 minutes. By the way, Ty Lue sat out Zoo Zoo played 39 minutes in an overtime game in game one. I think that's one of the reasons we honestly lost that game. We got a little too comfortable and sat him out for too long. It was absurd. Anyway, and then that second game, he had 16, 12, and 4 in a win on 60% shooting and 80 from the line. So like another solid game. Third game, 19 and 9 on 67% shooting, 8 for 12. So another great game. And then game 4, he had 19, 12, and 6 in 41 minutes, like on 9 for 14 shooting. So like if you just look at the stats, that's literally a great game. He had that game tying tip. I don't know if I said maybe we should have fed him more. I probably did say that in the when I if I could look back at my post game pod, but I don't think you can really get mad at him for that. And then 27 points in game 5, but his defense wasn't that great in that game. I think that was the first game where you could say, didn't look great, even though it was his highest scoring game of the series. Then game 6, he was on the quieter side, 10, 6, and 3 blocks. So mediocre, but we won the game, so can't complain. Then game 7, I don't think he was good enough. He had a double-double, but there was too many miscommunications. So if you want to get mad at him, game 7. But if I'm saying he had like 5 good games, like, that's pretty good. You know what I mean? It was definitely his best playoff series to date. 17 and 10 he averaged. So there was some low rebounding games. There's definitely something to be said about that. Games 5 and 6. But game 7, I just thought was disappointing because if you watch the beginning of that second half, it's he and Kawhi that are getting into miscommunications and transition defensively. And, those are supposed to be two of our most reliable defenders. So, and I just thought Zoo, I don't know, he just didn't look himself in that last game, but who did? But amazing year for Zoo. As far as what's next for him, well, in my opinion, Ivica Zubac is on probably, like, arguably the best contract in the NBA right now, which makes things really, really flexible for us. I mean, there's going to be no doubt that he's going to want, whenever, I don't know when he's extension eligible, but right now he's making, this past season he made, his new contract comes into effect this next year, 3 years. He was making $11,743,210 this past year. He's not even making $12 million. He's a $25 million dollar guy nowadays. That's $18 million next year is ridiculous. That's a steal. And I kept saying, we should potentially look into. I remember there was times this season where I said we should potentially look into trading Zoo if we want to rebuild, because maybe teams would be more inclined to give up stuff for him because he's so good and he could really help a good team and he's in his prime. But it doesn't seem like the Clippers are going to pivot anytime soon from Kawhi. And with James Harden having a player option, I think they're going to bring him back and just try to stay competitive till they have a little bit more flexibility. Zubac is on one of the best contracts in the league, if not maybe the best. And the next step for him is to treat him like more of a go-to guy all season long. Less of a burden on Harden, maybe less Harden Zoo pick and roll for more Zoo post up. preparing for the playoffs. Because the thing about it is, you still get the ball inside to a big. It's not a bad thing. There's this stigma about post ups nowadays that I hate, that it's inefficient and stuff, but it's not if you actually have an efficient post player that can make decisions out of it. That's all it is. You know what I mean? It's harder to make the entry pass nowadays because sometimes teams will front and then try to come over from the weak side, which back in the day could be flirting with illegal defense. But at the same time, if guys just go to high-low action, you can counter that as well. But guys got to be ready to catch and shoot from the mid-range area, which is not frequent these days. So that sometimes can be the challenge with that entry pass. And then I also think entry passing in general is just a lost art, which I mentioned in the last pod in regards to Harden being so good at it because players don't really post up. So it's also on the coaching staff. The coaching staff needs to prioritize Zoo like he's a star, even though he hasn't been an all-star yet. Because that's the thing is like if you're not a star, you don't get post ups these days. They'd rather just do pick and rolls for kick out threes. But you can still generate open threes through low post play in the NBA now. It's not like this, it's not basketball anymore. But a lot of times teams will rather have a guy take a shot in the post than open three. You know what I'm saying? But a guy like Zoo, he started to earn those double teams. Those will get us some good shots because the defense has to rotate all the way down or sink all the way down. So anyway, more Zoo, more Zoo, more Zoo. You can never get enough more Zoo. Each year he's improving, so give him more touches from day one. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper and LA sports content. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Let's get up to 8,000 subs. Hit the notification bell. And of course, if it's Zubac, congratulations, my boy. All defensive player, well deserved. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.